Why is it that we're constantly told that success only comes through relentless grinding, painful sacrifice, and endless hours of work? What if I told you that the most brilliant minds throughout history weren't necessarily the hardest workers, but the smartest work? You've probably felt it before, that crushing weight of guilt when you take a break. The voice inside your head whispering that someone else is outworking you right now. The constant pressure to study longer, to push harder, to sacrifice more. But what if that entire approach is fundamentally flawed? Let's think about it. You were praised when you put in those long hours, but nobody taught you how to make those hours truly count. You were told that success comes from sacrifice, but nobody mentioned that burnout is the inevitable result of mindless hustle. You were convinced that quantity matters more than quality, but deep down, you've always suspected there must be a better way. And you're right. Today, we're exploring what I call the lazy genius method, a revolutionary approach to studying and working that maximizes your results while minimizing wasted effort. This isn't about cutting corners. It's about cutting through the noise to focus on what actually works. Pause for a moment and consider this. What if your greatest strength isn't your capacity for suffering, but your capacity for strategic thinking? The traditional approach to studying is deeply flawed. It rewards time spent rather than results achieved. It celebrates the appearance of productivity over actual effectiveness. And worst of all, it completely ignores how the human brain actually works. Think about your last cramming session. Hours upon hours of reviewing the same material, fighting against your drooping eyelids, desperately trying to force information into your brain. How much of that information did you actually retain a week later? A month later? Be honest with yourself. The science is clear on this. Our brains don't work like computers, downloading information in one continuous stream. They work in bursts, making connections, building patterns, and most importantly, requiring rest to consolidate what we've learned. The lazy genius method is built on 3 core principles that work with your brain's natural functioning, not against it. First, intensity over duration. Second, strategic rest as a productivity tool. And third, leveraging the science of learning. Let's break these down. Intensity over duration means that a focused 30-minute study session can be worth more than 3 hours of distracted studying. When you sit down to work with clear intention, eliminating all distractions and fully engaging your mind, you enter a state of deep focus that dramatically accelerates learning. Most students make the critical mistake of measuring their efforts in hours rather than in mental energy expended. They'll proudly declare they studied for 6 hours while ignoring the fact that most of that time was spent checking phones, daydreaming, or operating at a fraction of their cognitive capacity. The lazy genius understands that it's better to work with complete focus for short periods than to work with divided attention for long stretches. Quality trumps quantity every single time. So how do we achieve this intensity? It starts with creating the right environment. Clear your workspace of distraction. Put your phone in another room, not just on silent, physically away from you. Close unnecessary browser tabs. Use tools like website blockers if needed. Then set clear, specific goals for each study session. Not, I'll study biology, but I'll master the Krebs cycle by creating a concept map and testing my understanding with practice problems. Finally, use a timer. The Pomodoro technique, working in 25-minute bursts with 5-minute breaks, is popular for a reason. It creates a sense of urgency that keeps your mind engaged while preventing burnout. Now, let's talk about our second principle, strategic rest as a productivity tool. This is where the lazy part of the lazy genius comes in. But make no mistake, this isn't about being lazy in the conventional sense. It's about being intentional with your downtime. The research on this is absolutely clear. Regular breaks improve focus, enhance creativity, reduce stress, and actually lead to better retention of information. When you work for hours without proper breaks, your performance doesn't just plateau, it actively declines. Think of your attention like a muscle. It can only sustain maximum effort for so long before it needs recovery time. By scheduling deliberate breaks, you're not avoiding work. You're ensuring that when you do work, you're operating at peak capacity. But not all breaks are created equal. Scrolling through social media or watching YouTube videos doesn't allow your brain to truly rest. Instead, try a short walk outside to get fresh air and movement, a few minutes of meditation or deep breathing, a quick power nap if you're truly fatigued, or simple stretching to relieve physical tension. Remember, these breaks aren't rewards for working hard. They're essential components of the work process itself. Now, for our third principle, leveraging the science of learning. This is where being truly smart about your approach pays enormous dividends. The research on effective learning techniques is vast, yet most students ignore it completely. relying instead on methods that feel productive but actually waste precious time. Let me introduce you to 3 evidence-based techniques that form the foundation of the lazy genius method. First, spaced repetition. Instead of cramming all your studying for one subject into a single session, spread it out over multiple shorter sessions across days or weeks. This might feel less efficient in the moment, but the science shows it dramatically improves long-term retention. The lazy genius understands that studying isn't just about getting through the material. It's about ensuring that material stays with you. Second, active recall. Don't just passively read your notes or textbook. Close them and actually test yourself on the material. Create flashcards, practice explaining concepts out loud, or try to solve problems without looking at examples. This process of actively retrieving information strengthens the neural pathways in your brain, making that information easier to access in the future. Third, interleaving. Rather than blocking your study time by subject, an hour of math, then an hour of history, then an hour of science, mix related topics together. This creates beneficial difficulties that enhance learning by forcing your brain to constantly switch context and make new connections. It might feel harder, but that's exactly why it works better. These techniques might initially feel more challenging than your usual approach. That's actually a good thing. Cognitive scientists call this desirable difficulty. When learning feels easy, it's often because you're not really learning at all. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This all sounds great, but my workload is still overwhelming. I still have too much to do and not enough time to do it. This is where the genius part of the lazy genius comes in. Being strategic isn't just about how you study, it's also about what you choose to study. Not all information is created equal. In any subject, there are core concepts that, once mastered, make everything else easier to understand. There are high-yield topics that are more likely to be assessed. There are foundational skills that unlock advanced capabilities. The lazy genius ruthlessly prioritizes, focusing first on these leverage points before moving to secondary details. They're not trying to learn everything. They're trying to learn the right things in the right order. This means you need to become comfortable with strategic ignorance. You must accept that you cannot know everything, so you must choose wisely what to focus on. Ask yourself, what are the vital few concepts that will give me the greatest understanding for the least effort? Let me give you a concrete example of the lazy genius method in action. Imagine you have a major exam coming up in 3 weeks. The traditional approach would be to create a study schedule that gradually increases in intensity, culminating in a final cramming session the night before. The lazy genius approach looks radically different. First, you'd start by identifying the highest leverage topic, the core concepts that everything else builds upon. You'd focus intensely on mastering these first. Next, you'd create a spaced repetition schedule, planning to revisit key information at strategic intervals, perhaps 3 days after first learning it, then 7 days later, then 14 days later. You'd implement active recall from day 1, testing yourself consistently rather than just reviewing notes. You'd study in focused bursts of 25 to 45 minutes, followed by proper breaks. And most importantly, you'd build in deliberate recovery days where you step away from the material completely, allowing your subconscious mind to process and consolidate what you've learned. The result? When exam day arrives, you're not frantically trying to cram in last-minute information. You're not exhausted from all-nighters. Instead, you're rested, confident, and prepared, not because you worked harder than everyone else, but because you worked smarter. This approach isn't just more effective, it's also more sustainable. By working with your brain's natural rhythms rather than against them, you avoid burnout. By focusing on understanding rather than memorization, you build knowledge that lasts beyond the next test. And by prioritizing rest and recovery, you preserve your most valuable resource, your mental energy. Now, I want to address the skeptics. Some of you might be thinking that this approach sounds too good to be true, that surely success still requires suffering and sacrifice, that the most accomplished people are those who push themselves to the breaking point. But look at the truly exceptional minds throughout history. Albert Einstein was known for taking long walks and naps as part of his thinking process. Charles Darwin worked intensely for just a few hours each day. Maya Angelou structured her creative work in focused morning sessions. These brilliant individuals understood intuitively what science has now confirmed, that optimal performance comes not from maximizing hours worked, but from optimizing how those hours are used. The lazy genius method isn't about doing less, it's about achieving more by being smarter about your approach. It's about recognizing that your brain is an intricate, complex organ with specific needs and limitations, not a machine that can be forced to operate continuously at maximum capacity. So where do you start? How do you begin implementing the lazy genius method in your own life? First, be honest with yourself about your current approach. Are you mistaking activity for achievement? Are you prioritizing hours spent over results obtained? Are you ignoring the science of how your brain actually works? Then start small. Choose one upcoming study session and approach it differently. Set a timer for 25 minutes of completely focused work, followed by a genuine 5-minute break away from screen. Notice how your mental clarity and focus change. Experiment with active recall instead of passive review. After reading a section of material, close the book and explain the concepts out loud as if teaching someone else. You'll quickly discover the gaps in your understanding. Practice strategic prioritization. Before diving into any study session, ask yourself, what are the most important concepts here? What are the core ideas everything else depends on? And perhaps most importantly, give yourself permission to rest without guilt. Recognize that recovery isn't the enemy of productivity. It's an essential component of it. The path to exceptional results isn't found in exceptional suffering. It's found in exceptional strategy. It's found in working with your brain, not against it. It's found in the counterintuitive wisdom of the lazy genius. Remember, studying smarter doesn't mean taking shortcuts that compromise your learning. It means cutting away the unnecessary, the inefficient, and the ineffective to focus on what truly works. You don't need to study harder, you need to study smarter. You don't need more hours, you need better hours. You don't need endless sacrifice, you need strategic action. This is the way of the lazy genius. And once you embrace it, you'll never look back. So take a deep breath and let go of the guilt that's been haunting you. The voice that says you should always be doing more, working harder, sacrificing more deeply. Replace it with a new understanding that true mastery comes not from exhaustion, but from excellence. Not from duration, but from deliberate practice. You're not lazy for seeking efficiency. You're not cutting corners by following the science. You're simply being smart about how you use your most precious resources, your time, your energy, and your attention. The lazy genius method isn't just a better way to study, it's a better way to live, a way that recognizes your humanity, respects your limitations, and maximizes your potential. So go ahead, work smarter, not harder. Your future self will thank you.